Welcome back everybody to another unboxing. We're going to be looking at the Spearhead Sand and Bone Gaming Pack today, which I was super pumped to buy because it has some improvements on the first iteration of Spearhead that I was really happy to see. So we're going to take a look at what's in the pack and whether or not it's worth actually buying this, and then we can talk a little bit about how my first game went. You can see on the back of the box that there are the instructions for gluing together the models. It's really straightforward. The two fences and the two walls actually just come in one piece and you don't have to put them together at all. And then you do have to do some minor gluing and sticking together of the coffin and then the statue, both of which make really spooky places of power if you're playing a 2K game of Age of Sigmar. As I've already played one game, I'm not going to be opening it from scratch here. I'm just going to be taking a look at what I already put together and built and show you how it comes. It all comes on one sprue. And by the way, I did actually glue this piece together, but it looks like it's already come apart. So I'm going to have to take a look at that again. It's kind of a weird spot. They do actually stick together a little bit without glue, but I would recommend that you do. So this is the statue of like New Nalmia or something. It's not as fun as the other terrain that comes in. This one has to come in via a twist card, and so there's a chance that you never actually see it, and it may not actually take effect into your game. We also have the coffin here from the Crypt of Blood. They're both from, I guess, from the Crypt of Blood, but this one's a little bit more cool. You can trade temporary, like a chance to deal some damage for a temporary boost in your hit score, so that's very helpful. And then the terrain pieces are pretty awesome. Lots of spooky details, lots of candles and skulls. Easy to prime these black, do some gray dry brushing, and then put your metallics on all the bars and spikes and things. Work some details into the candles and the bones, skeletons, the dirt, etc. Another wall that's kind of broken down. It's got vines all over it. Really good detail on these. Love to see it. And then you have two fences. Again, lots of skulls, bones, skeletons, tombstones, broken kind of down stone on the pillar. That looks really good. Otherwise, you're going to get a couple of inserts in here. And the first one is going to come with the cards for the game. And they come in different colors. So for example here, I've got the twist cards for the Dolorum side, and you can tell that they're the twist cards with a certain symbol and a little bit different coloring. If you compare these two right here, it's kind of hard to tell on camera, but you can see there's two different types. And then this is one of the player decks of battle tactics and abilities that you get as a player, and you draw 3 per turn. You can discard, draw more. Unless, of course, take a battle or a double turn, then you would not. Now, some of the cards here have new battle tactics and new abilities that you can use, which is very exciting. And I'll put these down on the board here because you can see that the twist cards for the Ossia side have a different color, so very clear which is which. And then the player deck with the Ossia colors is also different, so you're never going to be in a situation where you don't know which deck is which. You'll know if you have like mixed up the decks because of the backings of them, and that makes it really nice to figure out what's going on with those. So when you put them all down together, you can see clearly every single different item has its own backing, which is very useful. These cards do slot right back into the carrying case that they came in, which is very handy, but you could sleeve them with standard sleeves like your regular Magic the Gathering sleeves if you wanted to, but otherwise you have a nice little package for them, which isn't bad. We then have the game board, and the game board comes in this sleeve. When I set up the game board for the first time, I actually had to bend the creases the other way because the game was just a little bit tight and it would not lay flat. But let's set it up first. So this is a thick cardboard, but it could tear, it can break if you're not careful. It is really only connected at one point, so you have to be careful about that. It's hard to get the full picture, but you can see it on the box, in the rules, and online. But then we have the other side, different color, different arrangement. Maybe I'll just overlay on here what it looks like so that you can see. But nice to have a board. Maybe you can use it for Warcry 2 or something. The last thing in the box is the Sand and Bone, the book. The book is really thin. It's actually pretty disappointing. When you look at, like, even for example, the General's Handbook, when you go in here, you've got lore that you can read through of why we're fighting in Neos, which is, it's only a couple pages, but it's really appreciated. There's no lore in here. We're in two entirely different sections of Shyish, and we've got getting started, you know, what is Spearhead, we've got the battle pack, the battle plan, and then we've got the Spearhead armies, but no actual lore. It would have been like 1 to 2 pages at most for them to do that, so it really, I was pretty disappointed by that. But you have a getting started, kind of what you're going to need. There we can see a better image of what the 2 battle plans look like. We also have like kind of what's going to come in the Sand and Bone, you know, battle pack here, and what the battlefields look like. And then there's terrain rules. Now in here, the terrain rules are the same as the core book. The obscuring is not the new General's Handbook obscuring, and you can see there's rules for the special terrain, the Crypt of Blood, and the Icon of Nulamania. Or whatever it's called, you know what I'm talking about. There's rules for the game here, the different daises that are on the maps, and then the Sand and Bone battle plan, where it really just takes you through how to set up a game, how to start the battle round, etc. And if you seize the initiative, then you're going to not be able to draw any battle tactic cards for that round unless you're the underdog and you're behind by 5. So that's interesting. And then we've got the actual new spearheads. There's 4 new spearheads. These rules are online. You don't need to get this book to get these rules, but I did like having the rules to my army in here. It was kind of handy. It's nice having a nice, you know, paper copy of what you're working with. So we've got the rules for every new spearhead and what they do. And there's not even like a rules reference or anything on the back. That's literally kind of it. So when we put it all together, we've got our cards, you've got your pieces of terrain, and you've got a game board here as well. Overall, I mean, this is, you know, about as good a deal as the last Spearhead pack. If you enjoy playing Spearhead, then it's a really good idea to get this, because you're going to just get all the rules that you enjoy, but new battle tactics, new abilities, new terrain rules, more terrain, and a new board orientation with different objective sizes and placements. And all of that is going to contribute to having more fun. It gives you 4 possible maps when you include the old Spearhead to work with. And so there's a lot of variability there, especially when you start mixing and matching armies with your opponent, and maybe even like sharing armies and, you know, playing your friend's army once in a while. If you've never played Spearhead before, I think this is the way to go over the first Spearhead box, because you get more terrain. If you're looking to get into Big Sig, into the full version of the game, then this gets you some nice pieces of terrain, but also some bonus terrain over the other Spearhead pack. And this terrain could be used for things like places of power, of which there are many in the new General's Handbook. You also get, you know, the nice board and the cards and all that. But at the end of the day, I think this is really for Spearhead lovers. If you're not into Spearhead, then there's not like a ton here for you. It's not worth it for the terrain, for example. But there's lots of bonuses if you like Spearhead and you want terrain. Then it does help. If you're looking to get other people into the game, this is a really good way. I'm very excited to play this game with some of my students, although we had our last tabletop club meeting today, and so we're done for until the end of the summer. And so it's going to be next year when I introduce Spearhead to my students, but that's okay. We played lots of Kill Team this year, and it was super fun. Before we go, I wanted to quickly talk about my first game of Spearhead, which we played on the Delorme side. We set up our terrain, we deployed our forces, and I was playing the new Fusel platoon from Cities of Sigmar, and my opponent, David, was playing the original Seraphon Spearhead, because he does not have the, the new one. He doesn't have all the little things that he needs to build that one. So I was, excited to play against one of the best Spearheads around, which is the Seraphon one. And so I had the 2 units of 5 Fusiliers. I had my Wildercorp Hunters, I had an Alchemite Warforger, and then I had my Fusel Major on Ogre Warhulk. And I set up in a way that I had my Fusiliers spread out. I had my, my Warhulk in a place where he's not going to get charged very quickly, and he can just shoot and shoot and shoot. And then my Wildercorp Hunters use their pregame move to get up into the middle objectives. And from there, I could start my first turn with some points. Now, what I think I should have done was alpha pinned with the Wildercorp Hunters, who had the blazing hits or whatever from the Alchemite Warforger to have crit mortals, and that could have been interesting. It would have been my first attack, do some damage into the Kroxigors or into the Saurus Warriors, but instead I basically, I had moved them in the deployment phase up onto the objective, and then I moved them back towards my forces. And what ended up happening was they became a tar pit for a while, but I think that ended up creating a situation where 1, I pinned myself, and 2, because I invited my opponent onto my side of the battlefield, I allowed them to take objectives along the way. I allowed them also to deny me the space to bring reinforcements back in easily, since reinforcements have to come back in your territory. And when they come back, you often want to grab an objective or possibly some sort of battle tactic with them. And that is very hard to do if your opponent screens well, which my opponent screened very well. But it was actually a really fun match because the Carnosaur came down the side of the battlefield and had a really hard time killing 5 Fusiliers. And meanwhile, while my Wildercorp Hunters were kind of melting away, I was able to do quite a bit of shooting into the Kroxigors, and I eventually took out the Kroxigors. The game got very, very close in the end, where I lost 17-15, but it came down to a few things. My opponent was able to keep some Saurus alive through getting shot at, charged by the Ogre Warhulk, shot by some Fusiliers, and they also got shield bashed, which meant they had to retreat and roll a D3 damage. And so there was quite a few things that were dealing damage to the Saurus Warriors, and they survived with a single unit. And I thought maybe I should have killed that unit. But I also had some luck on my side. My opponent's positioning in his deployment wasn't the best, and because of that, he didn't tag an objective, and that allowed me to mess around with a card. And there's a new card called Monument of the Living Bone, where you can actually put a Phantom 1 control onto one of the objectives, and I could take that objective for him. So there were things that went well for me as well, and I actually kept that objective for a long time. So if he hadn't made that deployment error, I probably wouldn't have been so close to be able to possibly tie or win the game in the first place. Either way, we had a ton of fun with the game. I definitely think this Spearhead for Cities of Sigmar needs a little bit of work. I got to play it some more to be sure, but it's really tough to put out big damage, and only by focus firing onto the Kroxigor was I able to kill them, and that left everything else alive and able to kill me back. Because you can only bring back 1 reinforcement per your turn, you're often in a situation where you're waiting to bring back everybody. I also had the Final Breath card to bring back somebody anywhere on the board, and I could bring back my Ogre Marshal with that card, and without it, it would have been a table. Like, that was a saving grace, and there's always a chance that you don't see that card. And so I think if there was a way for this army to bring back multiple reinforcements in a turn, then that would be really good. I also thought it was kind of weird that the Wildercorp Hunters there's an enhancement that you take, or a faction rule that you take, that allows them to be reinforced And if you, or I guess, to bring them back as reinforcements. And if you don't take that, then you just really are in a really tough spot to not have those as reinforcements. And similarly, I took the shield bash for my ogre marshal, but if I didn't take that, I could have brought back a 10 pack of fusiliers. Now that's a little bit harder to do because both have to die and you have to have space to bring back 10. So it's not as big a trade-off, but it is weird to see those reinforcement rules locked behind enhancements. The fusilier one I'm actually kind of okay with, but the Wildercorp one seems really strange to me and kind of a bummer. It feels like you don't have a choice and you have to take that. I do really like the shield bash ability. So basically if you're against a war machine or a cavalry or a infantry with your ogre marshal, he can roll a dice on a 3-up. He can shield bash them. They have to make a retreat move, and that means they roll d3 damage, and then they have to move their movement score away from you, which is at least 3 inches because they have to leave combat range to perform a retreat. And this happens during your movement phase. So it's a really cool way to bash somebody off, shoot at them, and then if you want to, you can actually charge right back in, which is really cool. But it also opens up strategies where you can score battle tactics for not being in combat, or even charge onto a different unit or close enough to allow you to then maybe deal some damage into someone else or even score somewhere else if you need to manage your control. I'm definitely going to try this Spearhead again and see kind of how it goes. I don't feel super confident in it, but I also would really like to go back and try the original Cities of Sigmar Spearhead because it's been buffed multiple times now, because you can use your faction ability every turn instead of just once per game, and because the Cavaliers have that reinforcements, I want to alpha pin somebody with them, let them eventually kill them, and then just bring them right back to go alpha pin or just pin somebody again. But we'll have to report back on how that goes. But otherwise, that was my first game of the Spearhead. I thought it was really fun. We did use the faction terrain. It wasn't that impactful in the end. The placement wasn't, widely applicable to many objectives. That's just where my opponent placed it. I'm really excited to see the other terrain, the Crypt of Blood. I think that one's going to be really rad. But either way, it's cool to just get those pieces. I do like this pack. I'm glad I bought it. I'm very happy with myself. And I'm excited to get more games of Spearhead with my friend Dave. And then, maybe I'm even going to convince my wife that we should play some Spearhead, but we'll have to see. All right, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you all again soon in another video.